So, how do you choose the right kind of RV? Welcome back to This Mobile Life. If you're new here, my name is Dustin, and today we're going to be talking all about how do you pick the right RV for you. So in general, there's really two different types of RVs. There's motorized, like the van that you see over here, and towable, which similar to some of these trailers and fifth wheels you see over here. In the motorized category, there's really three main classes. There's Class A, Class B, and Class C. Class A are the large motorhomes, the ones that look like school buses or large buses. They usually have a flat front and a flat back. They're like 12 to 14 feet high, and they weigh like 30,000 pounds or more. Class Bs are like this van that you see here. It's literally a van that they turned into a motorhome. There's also a subcategory of Class Bs called a B+, B+. And that's where they take the front half of they keep the front half and they remove the back half, or they make it without the back half. And then they put a fiberglass or some other type of body on the back that's usually a little bit wider. One of the pros of a Class B is it's going to give you more room inside and allow for some other different types of floor plans and flexibility with how they design the inside. And then there's Class Cs. Class Cs are the type of motorhome that you're probably familiar, seen them down the road. They have the bunk over the cab. They kind of look like a U-Haul truck. They range in size from maybe 14 feet to 38, 40 feet, depending on the chassis that it's on. There's also a subcategory of Class Cs called a Super C, which is a much larger Class C. It looks more like the front end of a semi-truck, and oftentimes they have a similar motor that's in a heavy-duty diesel motor that's in one of those larger trucks. And then it has a traditional RV on the back. Still usually have that bunk over the top. Still has the same look as a Class C, but it's just a heavier duty version for bringing your vehicle, for bringing all your equipment and towing heavy stuff behind you, like boats and RV. Not going to tow an RV with an RV. Boats, you might, but boats and ATVs and snowmobiles and things like that. And then there's your towables. You're going to have a travel trailer, which is going to hook up to a hitch on the back of your vehicle, whether it's a bigger SUV or a truck. There's even some travel trailers you can tow with a car, depending on how big and heavy they are. And you're going to see some of those back there. And then right over there, that's what's considered a fifth wheel, which is where the hitch kind of comes off the middle of the top of the front of the RV and goes straight down into the bed of the truck. And there's a big, huge hitch in the bed of the truck. And the benefit of that is it can carry a lot more weight. It goes right over the axle in the truck and is it's carry more weight. It's also a little bit more maneuverable, maybe not more, different type of maneuvering than a travel trailer. And then within both the motorized and the travel trailer or the fifth wheel categories, there's also another kind of RV called a toy hauler. And what those are is usually the back half or back third of the RV is like a garage. So you can pull in a golf cart, you can pull in a motorcycle, an ATV, a RZR, side-by-side, one of those type of things to bring it with you, depending on where you're gonna go and what you're gonna do. So how do you choose the right kind of RV? What's right for you? It really depends on what you're gonna use it for, right? Are you going to travel all the time? Are you gonna travel a couple times a year? Are you going to take it to a campground or an RV park, set it up for the whole season and just leave it there and kind of go back and forth with your vehicle? Are you going to have just yourself, you and your spouse or significant other? Are you going to have kids? Are you going to have a ton of visitors coming over and you need a ton of different places to sleep? These are all things you need to think about when you're going to decide which RV is right for you. One thing with motorized units, they're pretty easy to just get up and go, right? There's different styles. Some of them have slides, some of them have jacks that raise it up and down to level it out. But for the most part, they all kind of work the same. They're just different sizes. And you can put it away, put all the slides in, disconnect your electric, disconnect your water, your sewer, put it in drive and drive away, right? You don't have to hook it up to a truck. You don't have to back it in anywhere special, you don't have to know how to back in a trailer. With a trailer and a fifth wheel, you have to be able to back them in. They're a little bit more tricky. It kind of works like backwards, right? When you're trying to back them in, you got to do everything kind of backwards. Takes some getting used to. But again, very flexible. You can kind of take them wherever you want. With a motorized, if you're going to bring a car, you can tow a car behind this. So we actually, both this RV and our previous RV, which was a huge Class A 40-foot bus, basically, we tow a vehicle with it. The downside to that, the plus side is now you have two vehicles, right? So if something happens to this one, you can get in your other one and drive away and go get help. If something happens to your car or your Jeep or your SUV or whatever you're pulling, you can just tow it to get it fixed, which is really nice. You have kind of some redundancy in your ability to kind of get out of a situation if you need to. The downside to a motorized RV and towing a vehicle is you can't back up, right? So once the way it all works and the steering and how, sorry, it is super windy. The way it all works and the steering and everything of the car, you might be able to back up like a foot or two if you're perfectly straight, but you really can't back up because the car is going to jackknife and the wheels are going to turn and it's going to get real ugly really fast. So if you do get into a position where you need to back up and you have a car on the back and it's not on a flatbed trailer, you're probably going to have to take your car off and then move the RV and then hook the car back up, and then you can continue on your merry way. For us, we chose motorized. We travel full-time and we wanted to be able to just get up and go and have that flexibility. Now, as I mentioned before, our previous rig was like 40 feet long with a Jeep on the back. It was about 65 feet long, weighed like 35,000 pounds or something like that. It was a beast. It was super expensive to drive because it had a big diesel engine in it, and diesel is going up and up and up and up in price lately. And but it was great. It was super comfortable. It was again, it was a big rig, so if there was a stop that we wanted to stop at but we didn't plan on stopping there, we didn't stop because we didn't know if we could get in, if we could turn around, if we can get out. That's one of the downsides to having a large rig, whether it's a motorized or a towable, is you kind of have to have a plan ahead of where you're going. Otherwise you might get yourself in a pickle, and then you gotta just kind of, number one, it's embarrassing. Number two, it's kind of a pain in the butt. We downsized to this, which is a Class B Airstream motorhome, which is a significant downsize from where we were before. We went from 40 feet to about 18 feet of livable space with no slides, because we wanted to be super portable. We wanted to be super nimble and able to get in and get out and travel frequently. We travel very often, and we wanted to be able to just get up and go. If there's bad weather, we can literally turn the seats around, unplug the electric and water and sewer hoses outside, put it in drive and drive away, right? My wife can jump in the other vehicle and just follow me if she has to. So very flexible. And if there's someplace we want to stop, we're driving along, heading out to wherever our destination is, and we see something, we can just pull off and go check it out. It's one of the pros of going with one of the smaller rigs. If you are buying a trailer, whether it's a fifth wheel or a travel trailer, a very common travel trailer, by the way, is an Airstream, but they're the big silver shiny tubes that you see driving down the road. But there's all sorts of different sizes, shapes, weights, capacities. There's ones that pop up and turn into a small little camper. There's ones that have partly tent and partly RV, and it just kind of expands out and gives you a lot of flexibility, but it's super lightweight. You can pull it with some cars and some SUVs, and you can get a 40-foot long travel trailer too, if you want a big, huge trailer. Trailers or fifth wheels typically going to be less expensive than a motorhome, because with a motorhome you are buying another vehicle, right? It has another engine, it has a suspension like a regular vehicle, it has brakes and all the kind of stuff that a regular vehicle is going to have. But with that also comes maintenance. Now you have to take care of these things like another vehicle. More expense, you've got to take it to a shop or do it yourself if you're comfortable with that sort of thing. So all things you have to consider. But if you haven't been in a Class B, if you haven't been in a Class A, if you haven't been in a travel trailer, there's all kinds of different floor plans out there, and you really need to go in to the dealerships, go to the RV shows, get inside these RVs and figure out what works for you. What do you want to be able to do with it? Who do you want to be able to bring with you? How easy do you want it to set up and tear down and take and hit the road and set up camp when you get there? You really need to spend some time just getting comfortable being in the different RVs. And you also have to find something that's in your budget. Do you want to find something that's new? Do you want to find something that's used? They both have their pros and cons, right? A new RV is going to come with manufacturer's warranty. A used RV might come with whatever's left of a warranty, or you can buy an aftermarket warranty. But again, both of those have their pros and cons. When you buy a new RV, nobody's driven it yet. And when you drive these things or tow them, well, depending on the kind of RV that you have, it's like driving your house through an earthquake, right? Stuff wiggles and stuff falls apart and stuff breaks. And I guarantee you, anyone who's been RVing for any amount of time, something always breaks, right? Might be minor, might just be a little piece of wood that fell off, you can just tack back up, or it might be major, right? There's other RV channels that we follow that like their axles break and things happen in the middle of nowhere. What are you gonna do about that? It is what it is, right? You have to just figure it out as you go. But with a new RV, nobody's driven this thing down the earthquake road yet. So you might be the first one to discover the problems. When you buy a used RV, somebody's already had this thing out and about and used it, lived in it, or stayed in it, or traveled in it, and a lot of the things that are going to break may have already broke, right? Not saying that something else won't break, but the easy things that are going to happen when you buy a new RV, somebody might have probably already fixed them. So something to consider. Both of our RVs were used. There's been things that have been fixed on them before we owned them. There's been things that have broken since we've owned them. It's par for the course, but at least the big ones, that hopefully maybe the expensive ones, are going to kind of work themselves out before you buy it. The other thing to consider with new, like, don't get me wrong, I love new cars, I love new RVs, I love being the first one to use it, and it's brand new and crispy and fresh, but there's a lot of depreciation that you're going to take a hit on, right? These things are not cheap, right? This particular RV, now this is a used one, but if you bought this new today, this is $230,000. And the second you drive it off the lot, you're probably losing 50 or 60 grand worth of value because that depreciation is no longer new, right? Once it's used, it's not new, so it's not worth as much. So something to consider. If money is not really your concern, then who cares, right? If you want a new RV and that's just what you want, it's what you want. If you want to get a little bit more bang for your buck, maybe buy a used one. It just depends, right? So spend the time that it takes. If there is a significant other or family members that are going to be traveling with you, again, whether it's part-time, full-time, weekends, whatever, bring them along, get them in there, see how it's going to work out. Whenever we looked at RVs, we would take everybody and load them up in the car and drive to the dealer and spend an hour or two walking around, looking at all the different types of floor plans, looking at the different manufacturers. We looked at everything. Before we left, we looked at, again, we've been traveling for about 2 years now, full time. Before we left, we looked at trailers and fifth wheels and towables and motorized and Class A and B and C and every different price points from 20 grand to $500,000, right? And just kind of see what the differences are. To a degree, kind of public service announcement here, to a degree, depending on the brand, you do get a little bit of what you pay for, right? There is marketing involved, there's costs, and these things just cost what they cost, but to a degree, we've owned an Airstream now and a Tiffin, our first motorhome, and both have been built very well. They used really good materials, high quality materials, and they're different. Like when we looked at our first motorhome, our salesperson literally went to the cabinets above the couch, grabbed onto them, and hung from them. Now, you can't do that in every motorhome, right? So, or every RV. It just depends on how it's built. But he did that to show us that this particular brand and this particular price point that you're looking at, these things are actually built really well, which is going to mean they're going to hold up better. Now, they're still rolling down the road of the earthquake, driving down, everything's shaking and wiggling, and screws and wood and everything. But they build them with better materials, and they build them with higher quality craftsmanship. Again, these things are built by hand, right? They're not. It's not going through an assembly line at a factory with robots. These things are built by hand, so people can make mistakes. And the screw might be a little bit off. And actually, we have another video on our channel where our previous RV was, it's getting a little older. It was 9 years old, and the front was starting to fall off. Right? Not a good thing. But for the most part, those brands have treated us, both Airstream and Tiffin, extremely well. We were the second owner of our Tiffin. Just a little plug for Tiffin. This is not a paid sponsorship or anything like that. We are the second owners, well outside of warranty, right? This RV was 8 years old at this point. Second owners, about 50,000 miles on the RV. And the fabric started all peeling on the furniture. And it was a known problem from that era. And we called Tiffin. They literally mailed us all new fabric for free. And then no questions asked. You know what? Yep, that's a known issue. Sure, it was 8 years ago, but their quality and their customer service was so good that they just said, we'll replace it for you. Now, we had to pay to have it put on or do it ourselves, which we actually did it ourselves, but all the material they provided for free. So that being said, how do you choose the right RV? You need to figure out what you're trying to do, what you're going to use it for, what you want to spend, and spend time checking them out. And don't just go to one dealer, go to multiple dealers, because they all have different product, they have different inventory, they have different brands that they sell, and really figure out what's going to work for you. What do you want to do with it? How do you want to use it? They're all good, right? For the right purpose, for the right use. So you could be perfectly happy with a $15,000 used trailer that's 10 years old if it meets your needs. You might be really unhappy with a $15,000 used trailer from 10 years old if you're going to be traveling and moving it every single week. Maybe you aren't. Maybe it'll be just fine. Again, it depends on what you want. So of course, I can't really tell you the right RV for you. It really depends on what you're going to do, how you're going to use it, where you're going to go, how often you're going to use it. But hopefully this video has helped you kind of figure out some of the things to think about, some of the pros and cons of different types of RVs. And if you have any questions on this video or just RVing in general, feel free to drop them in the comment section below. I'll be happy to answer any of those questions. And if you found this video useful, please click the like button. It really helps other people who have the same question find this video on YouTube so we can answer that question for them. And lastly, if you want to keep up with what we're doing, if you want to see more of our adventures, if you want to learn more about RVing, click the subscribe and or notification bell below. It'll help YouTube let you know when we put out new content, new videos, so you can see what else we got going on. Thanks so much, and we'll hope to see you on the road.